Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Hello.
What up?
Hey,
Next week is a good week. It's all about food.
It's always all about food.
I mean, true, but my question today is not food related, which is gonna shock everyone.
Wow.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, it was butter
welcome.
the
Well, we're talking
a
about
couple
food
weeks
in
ago.
our episode today, so I
This is true.
figured.
Okay.
I was talking to a friend last night, and she has have you ever like randomly said a saying and then like whoever's with you, a friend or someone, picks it up and just thinks it's like super cool, or vice versa, like someone says something offhandedly and you're like, wait, what?
Like
and then you're like, I'm gonna use that forever.
Is it a real existing phrase,
I got
or they're
one I don't want to
inventing it?
forget now.
Either or. It's just something that like you begin using in phrase. So I'm gonna I'll tell you mine and give you some time to think of if there's a phrase or something somebody calls something, even like if they call something super random.
Like cherry tomatoes, and they're called Tommy toes in certain parts of.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or if there's something that you're like, I love that, I'm gonna use it forever now. So mine is, I heard on a podcast, and it's a podcast I listen to with some British women, and when they're talking about somebody being like, or somebody or something even being like trash, right? Like I would just normally say like, ugh, trash. They say get in the bin, and I think that is the funniest thing, because I like physically imagine like this human that I'm disgruntled with, like crawling into a trash bin and they're like, just get in the bin, just get in the bin. I'm done. Get in the bin. So I'm using that now, and I'm passing it.
Just to be clear. Yeah. You opened that story by saying I was talking to a friend, and then revealed that it was on a podcast, which is extremely relatable to me.
No. Well, I was saying I was talking to a friend last night, and she said something that she picked up from me, which made me think about what I picked up. Thank you. My brain doesn't always connect the dots.
I thought
she picked up
that
from me.
You had one of those parasocial experiences.
Like,
non-linear.
My YouTube friends said that.
So
blah, blah,
Hannah
blah,
and
blah, blah.
Saruti were our best friends with me, obviously. But they say get in the bin, and I think that's. I love it, and I'm using it forever and ever now.
Does anybody else have any ready? Because I have some ready.
Okay. Do you want to go
No,
first?
I'm not. I'm just saying, if you need time.
I had one just popped up in my head. I don't think I use it all the time, but I know Alexis has also quoted this, but one of my friends have said, who is like incredibly intelligent, and she's so classy. She's very used to be an opera singer. And now is going to be a urologist, like is in med school, and just very classy lady. But she will be like, well, they're just dumber than a coal bucket.
I don't know who we were talking about. It was like the first time I met her, and she just shook her head, and she looks at me, she goes, they're dumber than a bucket of coal.
And like very classy, was a ballerina, opera singer, and now is a urologist.
From aria to urethra.
And it just comes out.
That.
In 2 moves or less.
That one's a good one, because I've heard like dumber than like see, now I can't think of
box
anything.
Of rocks.
Box of rocks, and
box of rocks,
bucket
classic.
of coal. I was just like, there's something so Appalachia about that. I love it,
and you just don't expect it coming from her.
No, it's so great when she says
it was good.
Well, one from the podcast that I think about all the time, I don't really use it, is Ray's use of Blue Side of the Mountain. It's just very powerful to me. I'm not trying to fetishize it. I'm not trying to do some kind of weird hillbilly elegy thing here or something. But
I'm making it weird.
I love that. But one that I picked up recently from one of my friends, aka a person I watch on YouTube and have never talked to.
My online friends.
He's a British bonsai professional guy, big cutie. Shout out to Corin Tomlinson. He was talking about, and I think this is just a common British thing, but he was talking about like when you go on some sort of you're off the clock, it's your vacation time, your off time, and you go and do a thing that you would normally do as part of your job. It's referred to as a busman's holiday. So like so the idea
European.
is that if you're a bus driver, the last thing that you want to do is drive a long distance to go, on a trip somewhere. So you're, a busman's holiday. So for instance, if I took my mom and one of my dad's relatives, we went to this like agritourism experience where we toured like a small kitchen garden, and we went and saw horses, and we did all these things that were very novel for them. Busman's holiday.
I like it.
Nice.
I like it. It's pretty strong. That's got strong game.
Yeah, it's like it feels very old timey and very.
It does.
Jessica and I have busman's holidays every time we go to a botanical garden on our.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
That's true.
Well, he went not to do business or just to have fun to this like bonsai event over in Holland, and it's like, oh, we had a bit of a busman's holiday.
Okay, I like it. All right, Ray, what about you?
A lot of history.
Ray has a so sayings.
I'm trying to think of any that's appropriate is my problem. It's usually expletives or something, or derivatives thereof. I don't know. Something I said that makes no sense at all, and I just randomly put two words together. Now Reed's saying it. Now his friends are saying it, and I'm worried. But I'm like, oh, what a trash biscuit. Like I say trash biscuit a lot, and it means nothing. It's just two unrelated words slammed together.
Is it, or is it just like the feeling of when you get a biscuit and you're like, oh, biscuits and gravy, and then your biscuit is trash and you want to put it in the bin? You want to get it in the bin because whoever made it.
A lot of like British. Yeah.
It has nice sounds to it.
It's phonetically works for me.
Trash biscuit.
And it's provocative. I feel like it gets the people going. Like it makes no sense. It's nonsensical.
Now that's what Ray says.
What I'm taking away from this is that Ray is what you call a creator. He's a cultural creator. He doesn't follow anyone's lead. He just sort of makes things up.
Maybe a trash biscuit. I mean,
that happens when you're 200 years old, Brent.
Yeah.
So.
He got bored with following trends and decided to start them.
There's so
many.
I've
seen come around so many times. So
Ray actually started Skibbity Toilet. Some people don't know that.
I did. I'm getting royalties to this very day. Yes, that was me. That was me, game developer extraordinaire, Skibbity Toilet.
So Skibbity Toilet fans, Trash Biscuit is next up on deck.
Yes.
We're doing some beta testing with the youth of Georgetown.
Yes. Apparently it's traveling in social circles now because I've heard it bounce back to me on a person I didn't even know. And they said, well, Trash Biscuit when they were pulling the bin to the curb. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, because it's something that you don't hear. So yeah, Trash Biscuit. There you go. I say haint a lot too here. I mean, it was spooky season a few weeks ago, and I love the word haint. That's an Appalachian traditional word instead of haunted or spirit.
Okay.
Instead of like a spirit, you paint the porches, and if you go to a Savannah, it's called haint blue. They paint the tops of the porches blue because spirits can't cross over that. Yeah. Yes. So haint is an old word, and it's an Appalachian word, but it's also a Southern word. So yeah, I'm a big fan of haint. It's not exactly a phrase, but it's a word I enjoy. Haint.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to share the one that my friend Anna has been saying, but I feel like I have to share that one off air since this is a UK podcast. It's not bad. I just think
saving the good stuff
could be offended. So
yeah,
I am gatekeeping
from you. That's high praise.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good, folks. We're so sorry. Maybe look in the show notes and we'll euphemize it a little bit.
If you follow us on Instagram, I'll give you a clue. How about that?
It's like it's not that bad, and then you say it, and it's like bleeping for like 4 minutes. Like,
yeah, it's just one long beep.
Oh God! I'm glad you didn't say that.
I mean, it's like something I would say to my parents. It's not like that bad. I just think somebody might be a little offended.
All right. Well,
but we are talking about deliciousness this week, right? We're talking about
surprise,
goodness, food, because next week is a delicious week in the
Thanksgiving world.
In the Thanksgiving world.
November. Holidays.
I'm a big fan of Thanksgiving. Like everyone's like
Jessica's
Halloween,
favorite meal.
Which Halloween's really big in my house, right? Anniversaries and birthdays.
It's a big.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone's just like Christmas. Like Mariah Carey starts singing in the background, and everyone's like Christmas. And I really like some Thanksgiving. Like, let's enjoy
That's
it.
Jessica's last meal if she ever had to have one.
I do enjoy Thanksgiving a lot.
So the only thing
the
only criticism I have of Thanksgiving, aside from some of the broader cultural critiques, which we're not here about, we're here about the food. Let's get it clear.
The culinary traditions behind
is why limit those delicious, amazing foods to just that one day? And I reject the premise. Jessica and I reject the premise of
my
limiting
birthday's
to
in
just
March,
that day.
And sometimes I have Thanksgiving in March.
Yeah,
for my birthday.
I was talking with Annie about how, like, I feel like my grandma had this deep appreciation for certain types of meals that were kind of complex, kind of not complex, but just involved to make. And turkey and dressing was one of those, where it was like, oh, a turkey and dressing dinner is like the vibe, right? Like my grandma would say that, she was really cool.
She was
ahead of her time. Yeah.
Yeah. She, much like Ray, was a cultural creator. And she was a co-creator of Skibbity Toilet, actually, but we don't.
I want to know what kind of dressing, because you got my attention, Brett. I totally derailed when you said dressing, because that covers a lot of ground. Dressing, was she a light and fluffy, or a heavy and dense, sagey kind of dressing person, or what kind of dressing are we talking about here?
She would prefer it lighter and fluffier, I believe.
Gotcha. You call it like stuffing or dressing, right? That's a great debate sometimes.
That grandma would probably call it dressing. My other grandma, who was so I had one grandma who was like Baptist, had one kid. My other grandma was Catholic and had 6 kids. And so it was like the spectrum of just energies and everything else. So in as much as we're talking about Thanksgiving itself and the Thanksgiving meal, I really just wanted to give a shout out, throughout this episode, to the way that fruits and vegetables and other specialty crops play this huge role in our food culture in the fall. We're kind of post peak harvest. We're in that awesome period of time where there's lots of great food. There's been great food all season long, but now is the time, I think, culturally, we really sync up with that harvest time and post-harvest food. And man, there is so much of it. So, Jessica, it feels like you have the strongest passion for this.
She has thoughts.
Where do we start? Where do we start with all of the fruit and vegetable related opportunities to enjoy this time of year?
Right. Well, I think like everyone goes to thinking about like sweet potatoes and stuff. And I think you're really divided about the yam versus sweet potato. And
are you divided?
Am I? No, but I now my mind is drawing a blank, and I totally did a whole article last year on the difference between yams and sweet potatoes.
Yams aren't grown here.
Doesn't matter.
Right. Yams are starchier, right? So
I prefer a sweet potato to a yam personally.
But I don't like
not to tick off big yam
with marshmallows on them. And I know that's a thing, right? Like people like the
sweet
casserole with the marshmallows on it, but I prefer it with like pecans. I still want it unhealthy, right? It's gonna be like
terribly bad for
me. Like pecans and like brown sugar and butter on top of those sweet potatoes. But
I prefer that version too.
Yeah. Because I think discriminate. Trying to think about, I like all the sides that we have.
Yes. I'm not a big marshmallow guy in general.
Homemade marshmallows, man, there's something special about a homemade marshmallow.
Those hit different.
They hit different. They do. They used to be a remedy for colds. Did you know that? It made your throat, like when you had a sore throat, because the homemade ones would like coat the throat. And so
you can't be coughing if you're choking on a homemade marshmallow.
Let's get this viscous material down your throat that clings to
conglomeration that's cutting off my airway.
Much better.
Not bad.
And then they were like, maybe not. Maybe we just put this in hot chocolate.
Finally, the kid shut up, stopped coughing, gave me marshmallow.
I mean, I don't waste. I guess we're talking about holiday foods and also seasonal eating and everything goes along with this, as you guys mentioned. Squash. But I don't waste. Don't waste my capacity on protein during, particularly the Thanksgiving meal. I don't fall for that. I can have turkey or ham just about any time. I'm all about the stuffing and the homemade mac and cheese with 12 sticks of butter and 8 Velveeta's in there. I'm all about that stuff.
So you're a mac and cheese at Thanksgiving?
Yes, I am, and it goes right next to like the broccoli casserole with equally as much cheese.
Say broccoli casserole too. That's really up there.
Yes,
either of those were staples at our Thanksgiving meals.
That's a Sheffield tradition, but like growing up, we had green bean casserole, but we didn't have
any of those casseroles.
Really?
What did you have, Brett?
Well, we would each get a hard roll and a list to list out all the things we were thankful for. That was our. No, I'm just kidding. We would have like pretty typical things of the turkey and the dressing, but also like mashed potatoes with gravy, green beans, and I would put the green beans onto the mashed potatoes.
Okay, yeah,
that's how I still do that. I just did that at a recent thing. I was down in Murray. They had green beans and mashed potatoes, and I was like, I'm gonna rep it down here as well.
I've never seen that done with green beans. Always peas, peas, but never green beans on the mashed potatoes. Nice.
Sweet corn.
Yeah,
we did do the sweet potatoes kind of in the style that you were talking about, Jessica, with the nuts on top, and but it was more of like the sweet potatoes would be more like pureed, less chunky, and so it would be kind of like a not very deep. But we didn't really ever do the casserole thing that much.
Oh, should we ask about the cranberry sauce? What type of cranberry sauce?
You read my mind. That's what I was going to say. No one's mentioned cranberry sauce yet.
If it's not can shaped, I don't want it. No, I'm just kidding.
No. You actually can use that to help with coughs.
It will keep it in your throat.
Yes, it must stay in can shaped form though.
Very viscous when it goes down like a lead pipe down your throat. It's amazing.
Have you all ever seen
through the roof?
The people who like will take tires, like old tires, and they'll put chains on them, and they'll use them to like in a culvert, like a pipe that might be clogged.
Oh yeah.
And so they'll pull. That's that can of cranberry.
Oh.
Okay.
Shows up on an MRI. It's all.
Yeah, it's like, why is this can-shaped conflagration done?
Wow.
It just like jiggles and it's weird.
Yeah.
We were a family where we had both. Mom made homemade, but we also had canned because you use one for one thing and one for another thing. So
what would they be? What were the other? What were the things?
So like the homemade would be like almost like a dressing we'd put on the turkey, right? Like you're just the turkey or whatever you wanted, but just like something more liquidy. Yeah, and then the canned would just almost be eaten like on its own, right? Because you could like pick it up with a fork. So it just kind of depends. It's like one was a condiment and one was sort of just like
its own thing.
You put butter on your toast type thing. I used to put mine in the roll. So
the canned works well for like if you do like the day after sandwiches, right? You know, like with the bacon and the cranberry. Yeah.
Yeah. I like both.
What was your reaction to so you aren't opposed to the canned?
Me? Yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
No, I like it all.
We've also like over the years have made like a cranberry like salad. I'm kind of like weird about like the ambrosia salads and salads that aren't salads, you know, kind of thing.
Why are we calling it salad?
Yeah,
I don't like it.
But like I've made
we just called it ambrosia.
Like
I never heard anyone call it a salad.
Oh yeah, that's like very Midwest ambrosia.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. Oh, you're fine. But like cranberry with like pineapple mixed in it and like some other jello, right? And had it that way. That was good. More people seem to eat that than they did just like the can of cranberry.
Yeah. We have the last few years made fresh and put them in the hot water and burst them and done all that fun stuff with citrus and with pineapple, and I don't think I can really go back to any other way. I really like it that way, and I think as I get older, my palate for bitterness
trash.
Wait, what? No,
no, we're going the wrong way.
No, I've actually I love bitterness now more than I used to.
Yeah.
And they're like cranberries have such a unique bitterness. I find. Am I off base here?
They're not substitutes. Like I like both, but I'm not gonna. I don't. when I want one, this is the flavor I want and the texture I want. It's not better or worse than this other one and its flavor and texture. Like I don't discriminate. Cranberries for all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one is better and one is worse, but I mean, you know, whatever you want to say as far as your opinion on it, that's fine. I'm just kidding.
Going back to stuffing, because I'm always going to go back to stuffing. Did you guys ever have it?
This is the second time that Ray has brought us back to stuffing.
It's going to be about 7
stuffing's probably my
times.
favorite. So
yeah, I love it. But did you guys ever do any versions with like cornbread stuffing, like cornbread stuffing, or like how do you guys do the base of stuffing? Like we actually used old cornbread. Mama like sit it out intentionally for that purpose, and then make a really an amazing. It was very sagey, I remember, but that was one version of stuffing, and then the other version will be like a light and fluffy stuffing, like you were mentioning earlier,
so
Brett. But
when Annie is a vegetarian, and we both were vegetarian and actually vegan for a number of years, and so when we would go to my parents' house, we would always like basically bring our own foods. Some of the side dishes were shareable or whatever, but I would usually make a thing of stuffing that was kind of like a protein heavy stuffing, and I would make I guess sort of like hoe cakes with fresh cornmeal.
Ooh,
and I would sit them
aside,
so and then I would cube it up and put that into mix it with some celery and some carrots and some other stuff, along with like some either a legume or veggie sausage or something. And then I would pour broth over it and let it really soak it up, and then bake the whole thing. That's how I would make a cornbread stuffing in that style.
Like a very moist or denser, because
kind of. It just allows the whole thing to kind of congeal and be more of a scoopable thing rather than definitely.
Right. Yeah. And then I add more gravy to it sometimes.
This talk of gravy needs its own episode. I mean, you guys are tearing me up. I'm a gravy person, so.
My mom and grandma always did like kind of like how Brett described, where you're going to put it in a casserole dish and scoop it out that way. My husband's family was like the first experience where I really saw like stuffing actually being like stuffed into the turkey, but they do all different things. A lot of things sometimes that I don't think is traditional. Like we have a cold asparagus salad for Thanksgiving, and I'm just like, okay. They also did a turducken one year.
That sounds fun.
Did you like it?
I was not there for that at the time.
This is lore. This is pre Jessica lore.
This is in
the dark era of Sean's life.
I was just dating, and I just remember hearing from my now sister-in-law that it took a lot longer to cook than anyone anticipated. So there were really hungry people waiting for a while.
Solid brick of nested poultry took way longer than expected.
A nesting box of poultry.
But I have a cousin-in-law, I would say, and she makes like the best like dressing. Like she calls it dressing, right? And it's like the dressing balls, right? And she'll bring them to my grandma's. And every year I'm like, Jennifer, like, can I have this recipe? Like, what is this? Why are they so good? I ate like 5 of them. And she's every year like, oh, my mom and I, we just throw stuff together and make it. And I'm just like, I need to know.
They're so good because it's like they have so many edges where they're round. So you get all the crispiness with the moist on the inside. And the dressing balls are amazing just for no other reason. Their form factor. I mean, flavor, yes, depending on how you do it. But the form factor of round dressing balls, and then you just slop gravy over all that. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
Did you all have so my grandmother and that side of the family is very large. My mom's one of 8, and they're from like Appalachia, Pennsylvania area. We always had pickled eggs at any like function where there was a meal being made, and there's 20
not deviled but pickled.
No, pickled. So there would be beets. Like we would have a dish that would have pickled beets, and then there would have been the pickled eggs that went in the jar from the pickled beets
for the beet juice.
And they were always so pretty. So with the beet juice. But I do distinctly remember always having pickled eggs if we were at grandma's house for Thanksgiving. So.
And you could tell how long they had been in the juice by the permeation or the penetration of the color into the center.
Did it make it to the yolk?
Yeah. Yes. It's like, your cure is not complete.
Sometimes you devil those, and then you're in good shape.
Oh, man. Good stuff.
You often hear people talk about deviled eggs or dressed eggs, right?
Yeah,
Like, I have
yeah.
come across people who are like, "Well, we don't have no deviled eggs in this household." Right? Like, I've been told
The
that in
devil
my
did not bless these
yeah,
eggs.
in my career working now with lots of different clientele and, we feed people a lot and have different, food events at extension offices. That has been a topic brought up before about there's a difference between dressed and deviled. And I was just like, paprika being put on them, right? Does that make them them deviled? And they're just like, "Oh no, we don't allow deviled eggs at our house." So
Different way
That
of looking at it.
that feeds into, the thing I was gonna tell you earlier that I'm not gonna say on air, so don't let me forget.
Keeps teasing.
We could talk Thanksgiving because it's a great topic, like all day long. But do you guys like seasonal eat? We talk a lot about local
Mhm.
food systems and local foods, and yeah, when we have the chance, I think we all kind of involve ourselves in those activities. But as far as locally grown and produced food, but do you guys like seasonally eat? Like certain things, do you eat in the fall of the year when the
Mm.
leaves start changing and dropping and the weather cools down? Do you eat things specifically during this time of year that you may not eat as much at other times of the year?
Acorn squash, butternut squash,
All the but just from a
the
practical standpoint, yeah, you can get that
harder
stuff, I guess.
squashes.
Yeah.
I would say there's, like I mean, I'm an American, so, like, we pretty much get whatever we want whenever we want it, but there are, like, a few things that I just refuse, and it's usually just based on flavor, so, like, I won't eat a watermelon when it's not watermelon
right.
season. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
there's certain
That's a good
things,
point.
but, like, I don't seasonally eat like, we'll get asparagus year round, and,
Yeah.
that would be the dream would be to more seasonally eat, but, I feel like that requires a different level that I'm not
Something
prepared for.
that is not like we are not necessarily growing local, but getting into that time frame is like the good citrus, like
Oh,
being able
yeah.
to reapproach that because I know that's something like my little family looks forward to
Yeah.
because like you buy the little oranges and
Mhm.
Mhm.
they taste absolutely horrible, like everyone
Yeah.
in the bag, and then suddenly you hit that sweet spot, like where we
It's
go through like a
amazing.
bag in like 2 days because 'cause
Mhm.
they're so good. But as far as like local wise, just like what Alexis said, like a lot of, squash because it's readily available. We talked about apples in our last podcast, like I have a giant bag of apples currently in
Yeah.
my garage fridge that my husband just likes to buy things in bulk and bring them home. Um, so those are like two of the big ones I think of this time of year, especially at our household that we'll have a lot of.
Can we talk about how mandarins were like, "You wanna call us cute we wanna be called cuties," and we were like, "You got it," and so now we call them cuties, and
Great marketing.
I
Yeah,
just
I
think that
mentioned somebody just yesterday, our Snap Ed assistant was like, "Can you go get me some cuties?" I'm like, "You mean mandarin oranges?" And like she rolled her eyes hard at me because she knew what I was doing. But yeah, that's weird how everybody asks for cuties now. It's like making, when we used to say, "Make me a Xerox of that." Well, it's not that's a brand, not a process. It's the same way a cutie is a marketing
Kleenex.
term. Yes, yes, exactly. But that is interesting how that's morphed over time and become almost universally, no matter what brand or marketing,
Mhm.
it's a cutie. I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah."
Sorry.
Somebody just voted for the affirmative of this conversation.
Yes.
Well,
Another
you
little
said
cutie.
cutie, he thought you were talking about him
Him,
'cause he's a
yeah.
cutie, so
I
that
feel like this time
tracks.
of year is, Cushaw season too. Did you guys eating Cushaw pie or
Ooh.
Cushaw? I love this time of year. I don't know, it
Mhm.
makes me think of Cushaw, and I was just thinking about that yesterday, as I can't wait to go and get one. There's a few local
Mhm.
sources of the thinner shelled ones. There's the
Mhm.
hard shell Cushaw that you can't cut them with an
I was
axe.
gonna ask, do you have a Cushaw hatchet? Because most
There's
of my
ones that aren't that
experience has
thick,
been trying.
but
Okay, that
now
makes more sense.
that's the decorative cushaw. Just like pumpkins, cushaw the same way. There's the more the decoration cushaw, but you get the old kind of the old versions of cushaw that were for eating primarily. They're just like the old lines of pumpkins. Yeah, but cushaw,
I
I love
gotcha.
cushaw pie.
Yeah. Nobody's mentioned pumpkin yet. If they like we have a
No,
pumpkin that is
best for
living
last.
still on our, kitchen table that we grew like like surprise one in our backyard, and I thought my son just wanted to keep it to like carve it, but instead he told me he's keeping it to eat it eventually. And I'm just like,
Okay.
"Okay. Well, I don't know if that's gonna be a good one because it's definitely not a pie pumpkin, but I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
have much experience with,
It's
making pumpkin pie from I just, go for the can, right?
I
For
actually looked
ease.
at I looked at the ingredient. I'm always like, well, what's in allspice? I can make my own pumpkin spice or make my what's in pumpkin spice. And you look at the list of like 6 or 8 or 9 things that's
Mhm.
in there. I'm like, I'm going to continue to buy pumpkin spice if I use fresh pumpkin. But yeah, the canned pumpkin's so good, and it's such a consistent product that I haven't made a from scratch pumpkin pie in years.
They have
Years and years.
removed an hard to believe amount of water from that canned pumpkin in my
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
of having
Mhm.
made some from like, and I think that the pie pumpkins, they just have a little bit lower water content.
Mhm.
But otherwise, and maybe a little bit higher sugar content, or maybe that's just proportional where it's like drier. But yeah, I remember getting it and cutting it up and pureeing it and putting it into like uh, like a mesh
Like cheesecloth or
cheeseclothy
something.
kind
Yeah.
of bag, spinning it and squeezing it and spinning it and squeeze just to get as much water, because otherwise you're gonna have a watery pie. But I don't know if the juice is worth the pie is worth the squeeze, the juice is worth the squeeze in that case. I think the canned stuff, I don't know it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But
Mhm.
so here's a question, along the lines of what Alexis was saying, with like there's certain things that uh sort of like the SEC line, it's just better here, or it just means more here, or whatever they say. It's just
That
better
is what they
seasonal.
say.
Mhm.
It's just better seasonal. What are some of those, like in this fall time of year, that you feel like that? So like
Mhm.
for instance, is cabbage better in season than what you can get at the grocery store?
Mm. Yeah, if it's grown in cool conditions naturally, I think so. But then again, I guess most of the cabbage that's produced at other places, would be like that as well, so
Yeah. Um, I find that that the cabbage is one of those like that. There's less of a difference compared to some others.
it's a pretty consistent product through and through, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that wherever it grew in optimal conditions for production, but you're right, Brett, it's a very consistent product, yeah.
What
I
do
would
you think,
say
Alexis?
greens, kale
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
but greens,
Mustard
even
greens?
like broccoli, stuff like
Yeah.
that, I think is I
Yeah.
mean, there's science behind it, obviously, but definitely kale is I
Can
think
you
better
put
in the
words
fall.
to how it's how you, so if I'm out
Yeah.
here, I've just had that stuff from the grocery store maybe or wherever. Can you tell me why?
Well, so locally grown, the in general those crops, if they're grown in a place where you have seasons, so you're getting cooler, those crops will convert their sugars when it cools down at night, and when we have like a little bit more of that jump that we tend to have in the fall of warm days and cool nights. So locally we have that in Kentucky around here, so that's why a lot of those like broccolis, cauliflowers, kales, greens like that will taste better in the fall than in the spring, because the spring we're getting warmer at night, where now we're getting cooler at night, and those starches are all converting into sugars, and so you have a much more flavorful, less bitter product, that's still like real
It's a
crisp.
totally different product if you eat them back to back.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
like Brussels sprouts are another one that are
Mhm.
really good in the fall locally, I think. But
It's not a local food, but it's chili season for me. I don't eat a lot of chili when it's hot, but it's soup season, chili season,
yeah. Well,
all of
it's like
those
your
things.
canned tomatoes, right? Like a lot of people
Right.
don't can a ton of stuff, but if they do, they'll
Yeah.
can tomatoes, right? Because it's just kind of a little easier. You don't necessarily have to have a pressure canner. You usually can get a lot of them from a couple plants, and so like it's like you're breaking out that set this
Mhm.
time of
I've
year. So
already started getting into mine, and then I'm
yeah,
also
Your
like,
canned
"It's
stuff.
so early. I should
Yeah.
I need to save them for the winter."
yeah,
Winter months were like eating all of that stuff. There was canned beans, there was, pickled corn, which I never was much of a fan, and there was just everything out of a mason jar. We'd have hundreds of, you know, jars of stuff canned, and it was amazing, the variety, but we ate on that all winter, and I knew it was winter when we would start breaking out the mason jars, And like you said, Jessica, Mom would try to wait to a certain point because you didn't want to crack the seal too soon, and start eating that stuff too soon. But I think of seasonal eating, like growing up, thinking back, we ate a lot of canned stuff, but people would bring us deers that they might have killed, and they were fresh kills, and for whatever reason they couldn't process. We'd eat a lot of venison for whatever reason. We would kill like hogs on the farm, but all of that stuff, I have super fond memories of, having your hands in that process of, hanging the hog out on the tree limb with, just in going through the whole process. But I have like lots of strong memories of all of that stuff and enjoy it. But the canned stuff more than anything, that was seasonal eating to us, because I was like, by the end of the winter, I was like, if I have to eat another thing of canned green beans,
right?
Green beans, yes.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say like a supplement to the canning conversation that predates the technology needed for canning is the fermenting.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, there were days where you would have some sort of a vessel and you could take and chop up a bunch of cabbage and get it going as sauerkraut.
Yeah.
And literally it's just preserved as sauerkraut, maybe with a cover on top, and you would just sort of scoop some out. It's a way that to supplement your vitamin C during the winter time. If you like the flavor of it, it's amazing. If you don't, I'm sure that there's a lot of kids that grew up in that time that are like, if I have to have another bite of sauerkraut. We make sauerkraut where, so I'll take, and I'm mellowing with age, but in younger days would just be like, go super hard and make like 15 or 20 gallons of sauerkraut at a batch, and like,
that's a lot of sauerkraut.
Yeah. But so you can end up going through 40, 50 plus heads of cabbage, getting big bags of cabbage and preserve them. And that's
Did
another
you have a trick,
method.
Brett, of when you would go through your process? People used to brag out here, ladies in church or whatever, people in church brag about the color, how bright and white, like there's sauerkraut. I mean, did you have any tricks or, pay attention to the coloration of the sauerkraut?
So there's a tradition in like some people who make sauerkraut, they will like pound it, muddle it, like pound it until the cell wall breaks down. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is it will almost invariably result in a mushier sauerkraut.
Oh, yeah.
And so I do typically minimal amount of mushing. I add some garlic, I add some onion, I add some obviously salt and water, and then keep it topped off. And usually the color's pretty good. I don't have any tricks that I do I didn't know that was a part of the standard of sauerkraut judging, but
it was a source of pride for ladies to have that nice, beautiful white like sauerkraut. And I don't know why that was a thing. I'm sure it was more aesthetic than functional, but I mean, I don't know. It's just
for me, it's texture and tang are the two tensions. The more longer you let it go, the more the texture is bad, but the tang is good. And then vice versa. You go quick and the texture is really crunchy, but the tang isn't as good.
Yeah.
I feel like you've like unlocked a memory of like what my grandfather was in charge of the sauerkraut making. And so again, they had 8 kids in the Depression era, older people. So I lived out in the middle of nowhere. And so even after everybody moved out, my grandma still like canned a ton, and they just did like their favorite things, right? Beets, cabbage. They grew a bunch of potatoes, stuff like that. And I'm like, you just like unlocked a memory of my grandfather and my uncle like processing cabbage for the sauerkraut. And I just remember like sitting there watching this machine they had that I like chopped it all up, and I would have been little of doing that. That's a fun.
Did they hand chop the sauerkraut?
I think they had some sort of. I remember my uncle like turning a wheel of some kind. So, and into like a big.
It's like a giant version of the like veggie shooter thing,
Yeah.
But it's hand cranked. Those are awesome.
Mom
That's so cool.
It was the sharpest implement I can ever remember in my life. But Mom had this old German double half moon kraut cutter, and it was a little hand implement that was crescent shaped, had two blades. And she would chop these huge bowls and process that so fast into this uniform size particle for sauerkraut making with this half moon cutter. And it was like a art and rhythm watching her with this big aluminum bowl just go to work on the sauerkraut and hand chop that. And I remember that nobody touched her sauerkraut chopper. And
It's like
she let
fabric
dad sharpen it. Yeah, nobody touches mom's sauerkraut chopper, but it was one of those weird memories that kind of goes around sauerkraut and processing it. So yeah, I didn't realize there was like other ways, like hand crank, probably a lot more efficient.
If you haven't tried sauerkraut, I would say give it a try.
Put it on your grilled cheese.
I was going to say, put it on something if you're leery.
It'll
like a hot dog,
mellow it out.
Yeah.
Undefeated. Combine a carb, a cheese, and sauerkraut.
There you
a little bit of black pepper. Undefeated.
Yeah.
Pizza.
I just had one.
Grilled cheese, wraps.
Yeah.
Undefeated.
Annie told me about that, and because I just eat sauerkraut like out of the jar, like just pull it out of the fridge. And she's like, "You need to try it with grilled cheese." And I was like, "You have changed my life." I just had it yesterday.
Because that's like actually was like on a Reuben, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Like sauerkraut on a Reuben.
Love
so
sauerkraut
you know,
on a hot dog.
Favorite sandwiches.
If you like, and it's like if you like pickles, you should like sauerkraut in my brain. Like I know they're different, but like I tend to think that like if you like one, you should like the other.
And you don't have to make insane
like
amounts.
Dill pickles.
You can make like a moderate amount. You can. I apparently can't, but I think
if you ever want to do it again, let me know.
If you've had the store bought stuff, to me, it's a little bit almost like over fermented is how I would maybe describe it, because it has a little bit of a soft flavor, and they also I think add some vinegar and stuff to it, but it tastes a little different than the stuff that you may have had in a more commercial production environment, and it's really straightforward. All you have to have is patience, really.
It's one of those
patience,
amazing
cabbage,
products.
Salt, and water is all you really need.
Which is really cool idea to think about it, like the flavor profile you get from
and
the
subtlety
ingredients.
But pickles, we had no fewer than at least 3 types of pickles, not counting spears or dills or the shape of what we were actually putting up. But I remember us having bread and butter pickles, salt pickles, and regular dill pickles. And then there'd be different variations of those things on whether or not you put them in whole, whether you slice them or made spears out of them. But Mom loved her pickles, and we had such a variety of pickles.
And take me through. Hold on. So take me through. The dill and bread and butter, that's like a vinegar and hot water bath canning kind of vibe.
At that time, back in the day, yes, it would have been a hot water bath. I know things have been modernized and changed, but at that time in my life, yes, exactly what you said.
It's still hot water bath to do pickles.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, I've started doing a lot of pickles recently. We make a lot of bread and butter, and then my husband likes
bread and
the
butter
spicy ones, like the pickle mix. But those bread and butter pickles, it's just like when you make your own jam at home.
They taste so much
better.
Freezer
jam, well, yeah, it tastes better. But if you freezer jam or regular canning jam, the amount of sugar that you're putting in,
oh gosh,
it kind of blows your mind.
Yeah, you cringe a little bit.
But they are so good.
Yes,
and just
those
the trick for me is like trying to get them to stay crispy.
Yes.
Right. And so that's just like, it's keeping them getting like perfectly ripe cucumbers and then keeping them as cold as possible right before canning. And they sell the things, that you can add to like kind of crisp them up. Yeah. But I found just keeping them in the refrigerator until right before I'm ready to put them in the jars and fill and can. But yeah, pickles are pretty easy. They're all still just water bath and not a very long processing time.
Cool.
Some of the folksy people will put an oak leaf or a grape leaf in with the pickles for crispness, because it has tannins in it, and in theory it would help. I don't know. I always thought that was a fun,
interesting. Never heard of that. That's
folksy
cool
thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think that's like that. May not. You check with your local extension office to make sure this is. I'm not taking on your well-being with my folksy. I'm just trying to keep up with Ray.
Yeah, the folksiness of Ray.
And so the salt pickles. What's the deal with that, Ray?
I don't remember specifically the process other than they were very salty. It was straight brine. I mean, the
Were
salt pickles
they
were straight brine. I
like a
mean,
sealed canned
yes,
jar?
it was a canned in a
Okay.
water bath type process, but salt pickles, only about half the family loved those, so we did fewer of those than dill or bread and butter.
Gotcha.
That's the
Because
butter.
there's, the brining and fermenting side of things, again, not to keep pulling it back to that, but that
Yeah.
was a technique for
Mhm. Mhm.
preserving things before
Yeah.
they had, canning. And so you literally just have this big thing of pickles where it's all below the surface of the water. It stays anaerobic,
Mhm.
gets all funky and tasty and all those other things. And I think that's something I didn't ever realize that growing up necessarily. There is, for some of these fermented things, there is no canning stage. It's never killed.
No.
It's
It
never, and all that
just
kind of stuff. And
by
so
the
it's
nature of the process, yeah.
pretty interesting. And that I associate sauerkraut and like pickled pickles
Mm.
with fall, like because
Mhm.
you sort of start it in summer and kind of have batches going throughout
Yeah.
summer and then have it built up
Yeah, I
for
did
the fall.
just the fall. I mean, that's like pies, and I think of all the I don't know why dumplings, but more than anything else is, I think
Soul
Jessica first brought it
food.
up. Yeah, just comfort food, but also all the canned stuff and
Yeah, we
stuff that we
didn't
got out of the
mention your
garden.
sorghum that you said you
Yeah.
consider
Oh,
fall.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorghum and all the sweeteners that, molasses and sorghum and all that stuff. And are you guys you're making that still, right? Because I'm nervous if you say no, really no.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Okay.
still doing sorghum and just got a batch finished. So, yeah, it is kind of a fall
Yeah, it
thing
is.
because it's, like, one of the last, like not the last crops, like, we're harvesting,
It
but while
really
the
is.
main
It's a late
vegetable
one.
produce is going down, that's when it's time
Mhm.
to harvest that, usually in,
Yeah.
October into, late October,
And
harvesting it
that
and
that's
processing it.
that's such a cool process too. I mean, the way you squeeze it out and the way you boil it. I guess you guys have what, a 3 or 4 bin boiler or whatever. I don't know I haven't looked at the process in the last 10 years, but I remember that's a cool process, the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
that you make it.
It for at least my husband, it's gotten significantly faster because the first year
Mhm.
he did it, he just had a large pot
Yeah,
and
oh
he
gosh,
squeezed all the juice
yeah.
and he put it in there, and we were talking about that, how the first time he did it, which was actually, like, the year we got married, I remember he started cooking at, like, 9 in the morning, and then it was, like, 10 o'clock at night, and he still wasn't, like, finished cooking
Aw.
it
Yeah.
down.
And
It
that's
took
if you do a
forever.
single pot. It's almost like maple
Yeah.
syrup type
Mm.
process. If you reduce it, it takes
Mhm.
so long. You have to have that big
Yep.
pan, but the first
Yeah.
time you do it with the big pan, you do what? You
Burn
scorch it
it.
all. You
Yes.
burn it, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, now he has this system where he has a large pan and he cooks it over an open fire, and
Mhm.
now he knows and he has it down.
It's
But it's one
awesome.
of those things, like, I think when people see it at first, they're like, "Ugh."
Ew, gross.
Right? Because it's all this green
Oh,
juice
it's
foam, and it's like,
so
"That's
good.
gonna be good," and then it turns into this great
It's
syrup
amazing.
afterwards.
Chlorophyll.
Just
Yep.
I have
biscuits and butter and that, goodness,
Mhm.
man.
I have a
Cookies, I
memory.
use it in baking.
Oh, sorghum cookies are the best, absolutely.
I have a memory of the sorghum growers group having the booth out at the state fair, and
Mm.
they would have little plastic
Uh-huh.
spoons where you could taste.
Mm.
And it was like every year we would go out there, and that would be one of the first places we would hit. And so I always will associate the taste of sorghum because I mean I grew up in Louisville. It wasn't we weren't cooking with sorghum or even knew what it was, and so that's like the only time that I had it for a really long time.
What did you think when you first tasted it? Did you have an impression that's still in your mind, Brett, when you first had it?
Um,
Bitter. That's why he likes it now.
it there was just a depth to it
Mhm.
as a sweet syrup that I had not experienced. Maybe in honey, but even honey, it's
Mm.
way a way lighter flavor profile. Of
Mhm.
course, I'm not.
Unless you've had
I wasn't putting
buckwheat,
these
yeah.
words to those as like a 8-year-old, but the palate, my
Your
palate
More
mind
is
had to
depth.
process
getting.
that, I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I remember thinking like, and I think if I had the words to put it to it, then there's a vegetalness to it. Like it's
Mhm.
very clearly from a plant
Mhm.
Mhm.
compared to like honey is hard to describe what it where
Oh,
did this
yeah.
come from? It's a very
Right.
strange flavor, but whereas something like I don't know, just sugar. I wasn't eating just spoonfuls of sugar, but maple
You
syrup has, I
weren't?
guess, its own.
Yeah,
I've never made
maple
that
syrup's
as a child.
Seriously, like you weren't, because I recently learned that my husband in elementary school every day took for lunch a peanut butter and sugar sandwich.
No, he did
Well,
not.
I
Yes,
did.
and not like
That's
the
not
all
bad. Not
natural
syrup,
peanut
but
butter.
sugar.
It was Jif
Sweetened peanut butter.
sweetened
Okay.
peanut butter.
I mean, let's do a little analysis on the
Well,
sugar.
with
We
white
just talked
bread.
about the sugar content of jam and jelly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty much what my child's eating with his
I mean,
peanut butter and
peanut
homemade
butter and
jam
syrup.
that he has on his
Same
I
thing.
feel
sandwich.
like, but like at least homemade jam has like some antioxidants in it, right? And like
he may have, I think he may have been a
hope so.
visionary. I'm going to say Tyler
flavors.
was a visionary.
No, my
He's a
husband was
visionary.
like, I want white bread and I won't eat the lunch at school. I want peanut butter and sugar sandwiches. And I, for one, am shocked.
So I'm just defending it on it's not that crazy level. On an aesthetic level, I find that revolting.
The graininess of that. I mean,
just
did they
like
melt
white
them
sugar?
together?
Like, how did he become the healthy human he is now? If that is his formative
Good genetics,
years?
baby.
Yeah. Long game.
Or maybe we've been doing it all wrong, and
He knows something that we don't.
Yeah, actually,
be.
it was the grape portion of the jelly that was causing all the problems.
Wasn't there
The
a
sugar
song, A
part was
Spoonful
totally
of Sugar or something?
makes the
Yeah.
peanut butter
for
go
medicine?
down.
Yeah, it makes the peanut butter not asphyxiate.
the
You know, if
Wonder
you just
Bread go down.
eat a couple of cups of peanut butter, it actually helps a lot with a cough.
Yeah, because you can't be coughing if you choke.
That's what I've heard.
Just really coats the throat.
Just
Yeah.
it's so good.
No, you can't drink anything afterwards. It's very important.
I'm feeling much better now.
That's great. It's great.
All right.
You're welcome for all the advice today.
Yeah, this is this
so
conversation.
the advice is use something to coat the throat when you're sick.
Yeah.
Take,
But
take it
also,
with a grain of
Whether
salt.
that be homemade marshmallows, whether that be a just solid
butter.
can of cranberry relish, whether that be a fistful of peanut butter.
also try sauerkraut's the other thing. Maybe try that. Add that to your Thanksgiving list, possibly if you're interested in that.
And I'll say on just the tiniest bit of a not serious note, but whatever, as close to serious as I can get. As you're eating some of these foods, sometimes it's easy for them to become just this commodity thing. It's just this idea that exists that didn't come from anywhere. But just remember that corn, those beans, those cranberries, that turkey, they were grown somewhere. They didn't come from nowhere. And as you move throughout the year, it's easier to remember that when you go out and see stuff growing out in the field. But when you sit down and you eat, a bunch of people, a bunch of time, a bunch of energy went into making that stuff happen, and it didn't just come from nowhere. And it's just nice to kind of remember that sometimes.
I'm sorry, I just have to say, for a second there, I thought you said
when you eat people,
when you eat a bunch of people.
What did I say?
In between you, that's exactly what you said, but you meant to say when you eat, comma, with a bunch of people, and you said when you eat a bunch of people.
Yes. I was it was my AI generated content.
This Brett is Brett real? We'll never tell.
Sure.
I'm definitely
That
real.
smooth radio voice. Is it real? Is it attached to a human?
Well, awesome. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Something a little different. We wanted to talk about food. What's new for me, I know, but the rest of the group was on board this time. So thanks for being here today with us. Leave us a review, drop us what your favorite thing is, tell us which cranberry sauce you like. And if not, some people just don't like cranberry sauce at all. So, what do you like? Is it just gravy on everything? No shame in that. Whatever you're into. But
Just a spoonful of sugar.
Spoonful of sugar. You can also follow us on Instagram at Hort Culture Pod, and we post about our episodes on there. You can send us messages. You can email us. You can find that in our show notes if you have any questions or thoughts, or just want to say, hey guys, you're great. Keep up the good work. We always take that. No criticism allowed, obviously. But we hope that as we grow this podcast, you will grow with us and that you'll join us next time. Have a great one.